Hello and welcome to Clash of Lords 2, Guild Boss Episode 1, Ether Ogre. I'm going to get right into it because I don't want to take up a whole lot of time and there's quite a bit to discuss with this boss. Unfortunately, I didn't get this recorded last night when he was still available, so I can't show you the abilities he has, but I'll give you a quick rundown of the important things to note with him. He's a melee boss. He attacks very quickly and does a lot of damage, especially as his permanent buff increases in stack number. He summons minions that can kind of be a little bit irritating at times, beating on your heroes and whatnot. He's got a knockback effect, which is, just costs you DPS. It doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of damage, assuming that you have Berserker aids, which are a requirement for this guild boss if you want to score very high. And then lastly, he's got a burning effect, which not only sucks hit points away at regular intervals, it also stops your heroes from healing. So you'll see my first two heroes I've got here in the lineup are Abyss Demon and Ambrosia. Both of them have high attack rate and high attack power, so they do a lot of damage. I've got right now I've got Ambrosia equipped with a sword. I always try to run one hero with a sword on this boss because that allows, especially a fast attacking hero, because the sword will proc and the lightning will kill the additional minions that he summons very quickly, and that's useful because it reduces the amount of damage that I'm taking. And you'll see on Abyss Demon that I'm running an Enchantress instead of a Pangoli. That's okay. I don't have trouble keeping my heroes alive generally, but even if I do, generally speaking, I want to make sure that my Arcane Caster is the last hero alive, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. So Enchantress here is mostly useful to dispel the burning debuff, which allows my Abyss Demon then to heal himself again. And you'll notice while watching the video that Ambrosia is sorely lacking an Enchantress here. I unfortunately don't have a fourth or fifth of them available to use, and she almost never during the fight is able to be healed up. Moving on, we've got Wolven Fiend. He's the new hero. In the wolf form, he attacks very quickly and does a lot of damage. So he is the place where I'm trying to place my Bullhead aid. Bullhead's a very important aid for guild bosses because he has a debuff that applies to them that makes the boss take more damage. And it's a significant amount of damage at once you get his skill to level 20. Ideally, you want that to be on a hero that attacks as fast as possible to make sure that you have maximum uptime of the debuff on the boss. It doesn't then fall off, and you have a period of time where you're attacking and you're not getting the extra damage. Arcane Caster, as I said, is the linchpin of my strategy, and is incredibly important to have. You don't really necessarily have to have high enchants on her or anything ridiculous. It's basically, you just want to have her divine. That's the most important thing. And I run a Chiron aid on her in order to increase the amount of damage she's reflecting, because that's kind of how this strategy accrues most of its damage. Lastly, we've got Renee Ven, and she is primarily here for her divine, which restores another divine. There's a couple strategies you can use in this guild boss, or that I use at least, from week to week. One of them is running an Enchantress in my main team instead of running Enchantress aids, and then using Renee Ven to have two Enchantress divines, which reduces my incoming damage, dispels all the debuffs on my heroes, and just generally makes me live a little while longer, or live through some high amount of burst damage. However, I think, generally speaking, I get higher damage bringing back the Arcane Caster Divine a second time, because it reflects, I believe at max level, it's 90% of all incoming damage, which turns out to be quite a bit at this stage. And then you'll see I've got a Toxic Shaman there, again, for lack of any better aid, and because ultimately, if my heroes were to start dying in mass numbers, I want everybody but Arcane Caster to die, so I don't want a Pangoli aid there. So Toxic Shaman just gives me a little bit extra reflected damage when he does his AoE burst and whatnot. Berserker aids on everybody. As I said, if you've got 5 Berserker aids, even if they're only like level 120, skill, 12, 15, whatever it is, they're still worth running. After a couple stacks of this guy's buff, he'll just start one-shotting your heroes if you don't have a Berserker aid. So that's probably priority number one for a lot of these guild boss modes and other things that hit really hard is getting 5 Berserker aids. And I personally went the route of getting 5 aids all up to 120, getting their skills up before worrying about starting to evolve any specific one or glory any specific one. And that's for modes like this where you pretty much need to have it on all of your heroes, otherwise at some point your hero is just going to get smacked in the face really hard. And it takes a pretty high level hero to be able to withstand that. One thing I will note here is with Wolven Fiend, he's got 2 modes, and I almost always in this fight use the Wolf mode because, as I said, I want the damage and the attack speed buffs. However, if you find your heroes are weak to the big knockback smash he does with AoE damage, you can flip your wolf to human form right before that happens, and your entire team will get a large amount of damage reduction, which can help you last at least a little bit longer. There's a couple different strategies for this fight. Some people just jump right in and try and like pull the boss over with a Demon Slayer and then use a Jinny and just start piling damage on as quickly as possible. I'm play more of the long game. My heroes mostly tend to live throughout the entire fight, and I get good damage that way. I can't pull up the leaderboard, unfortunately, to show you, but yesterday I placed 3rd, and I believe both teams above me were fairly similar in construction to mine, possibly different weapons, different aids. I'm really kind of lacking. It would be nice to have 4 axes here, but I unfortunately only have 2 that are gold, or potentially even running 1 axe and 3 gold brands, but I only have 2. So this is just kind of the layout that I've used. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything as far as general strategy with how I set my lineup goes. So I will be back after the jump, and I will show you the actual attack and what my score was. Alright, so here we've got the attack. And first thing I'll say is I drop my Ambrosia down here in the far bottom corner, and if you drop a hero right there, then the guild boss gets activated and he comes out to you, and that kind of buys me an extra couple seconds. I've tried dropping a melee hero down there before, but I think a ranged hero is better just because you get to start attacking the boss sooner. So I drop my heroes and immediately go for my wolf's skill to get him into wolf form and get Abyss Demon going, healing. And then I pretty quickly pop Abyss Demon's Divine, that way he's not able to be knocked back. And from here it's just a matter of piling on the damage as quickly as possible, and what you're looking for is to preferably wait as long as you can to use Arcane Caster's Divine the first and second times while keeping her and hopefully Renee Ven alive, and it's kind of difficult, it sounds like a lot. So you'll actually notice that I let Arcane Caster die here, and that was kind of a mistake, but I was hoping that quickly soon after Ambrosia would follow. That way I could resurrect them both with Renee Ven, since I have her skill at 30 and I can get 2 heroes back, but Ambrosia just wouldn't die even though she doesn't have an Enchantress. So I got my Arcane Caster back, and then I popped her Divine once I noticed that the boss was hitting her. I was seeing large chunks of her hit points drop. That way all the damage that boss is doing, you can see how quickly and how hard he's swinging, all that damage was reflected back at him. So then immediately after I saw the Divine finish, and make sure you wait till you see the Divine finish, otherwise sometimes it malfunctions and you'll get the wrong one back. I used Renee Ven's Divine, so I have Arcane Caster available again. And now I'm just trying to survive as long as I can and use her Divine as quickly to the end of the fight as possible. Preferably with the guild boss attacking her, and you'll see I get really lucky here at the very end, and the guild boss for some strange reason turns to Arcane Caster and hits her a last couple times, and that gets me, I don't know, another 18 million damage or so right there. So I finished right about 85-5, I believe. Generally speaking, what you're looking for is to keep Arcane Caster alive as best as you can. Watch for large chunks of her damage, of her hit points to start coming back or being taken off, and you'll notice that little chunks will come off when she's burning, and you can get rid of that by using her skill. But when large chunks start flying off, that's when the boss is hitting her, and I like to use her skill then, that way she heals herself while she's being hit, and that's also where you want to use her Divine. And if you get lucky, and a lot of these guild bosses are about getting lucky, you'll notice that wasn't optimal with my Arcane Caster being dead for a while, but that was still 20 million better than my other best try, and I bought every chance I could today to try and get a good video for you guys. So you have to not only get lucky, but you have to time things perfectly within being that lucky to score these top scores. But if you practice at it, then it gets much more likely you're going to achieve that. I had several scores this week above 60 million with this tactic, and then finally got this one at 85. And the last thing I'll say in closing is that You can use this team or a team similarly constructed. I laid out what I'm using each hero for to achieve good scores on these bosses. Guild Boss is one of those places where you'll find there's a pretty direct correlation between not only the strategy that you choose to use, but as your heroes power up, you know, the damage numbers start going up higher and higher and higher, and it's pretty easy to see. So I wouldn't expect that the average player could come anywhere close to achieving that kind of score. But if you use that kind of strategy and keep working on your heroes over time, you'll see your score start to escalate higher and higher and higher, especially when you get those lucky attempts like that one that you just saw, where you get to time, you know, the Arcane Caster Divine perfectly, or the Enchantress Divine if you're using that method, or whatever method it is you're using. If yeah, every once in a while you'll have that perfect confluence of events and you'll attain those really high scores. So keep working on it, everybody, and let me know if you have questions in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.